On April 2nd of this year, Specialist Ivan Lopez went on a rampage at Fort Hood, Texas, killing 3 and injuring 16. At the time of the shooting, he was undergoing evaluation and treatment for mental issues often attributed to PTSD. Throughout history, soldiers have struggled with the after effects of war. During the Civil War, we called it soldier's heart. After World War I, it was changed to shell shock, and then World War II, battle fatigue. Now, we have soldiers coming back from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, suffering from a condition called post-traumatic stress disorder. It's estimated that over 250,000 vets have sought treatment for PTSD, and 22 veterans a day take their own life. It seems that we have an urgent health crisis facing our recently returned veterans. So wanting to see what's being done about all of this, we sent Ryan Duffy to investigate.
No matter what you've been through, no matter how hard your road is, you shouldn't be left behind. And when you see a veteran who's struggling, it definitely breaks the heart of people watching, but for a fellow veteran, it's especially hard. You don't want to ever leave anybody behind, whether it's on the battlefield or it's home in San Diego or Texas.
He's going up here to get a bundle of dope.
What's the drug of choice?
Crack and dope.
That's crack? How long will it last?
With us, like 10 minutes.
This is Emily and her husband, Mike. Both veterans of the Iraq War. They're currently homeless and struggling with re-entry into civilian life.
Everything that I was before, like a social, outgoing person, I wasn't that when I came home. There was something wrong with me. I should have never been put out just being that way, being mentally incompetent. I just didn't have any connection to people at the time when I got back from Iraq. I knew how to do my job, but that was it.
There's just so much emotional baggage and bullshit. You don't want to think about it, you don't want to talk about it, you don't want to care about it, but it all comes back anyway.
This is their friend Jarek, an infantryman in Afghanistan who, like Mike and Emily, is suffering from PTSD and augmenting his prescription medication with harder drugs.
You were ambushed by enemy forces. You were the lead gunner in the lead vehicle and the first to fix the enemy and return fire. When the patrol was cut off, the decision was made to turn around and go back through the kill zone. You reloaded and again were lead gunner, and your courage under fire set the tone for all gunners during this engagement. You were a fucking American hero. This hot shit. I mean, how did we get here?
I got injured during a firefight and I took some shrapnel on my legs.
Hey, we took a round right there, gunshot!
One of my good friends died in a tank mine explosion. The whole incident just had me have nightmares and shit. I mean, I've tried every antidepressant known to man. 7 different psych meds, just doesn't seem to help. The thing that I found relief in is dope. I swear they teach the doctors not to diagnose people with PTSD because I wasn't diagnosed with PTSD until after I overdosed.
To get a better understanding of PTSD, we spoke to Dr. Bart Billings, a clinical psychologist who served 34 years in the Army Reserves and has been working with vets suffering from combat stress for the past 25 years.
Human beings get used to living in a certain environment. If you introduce anything in that environment that is very traumatic, very different than what they're exposed to, they're going to experience post-traumatic stress afterwards. 99% of people who go into combat come back with post-traumatic stress. It's a normal reaction to being in an abnormal environment.
And with the Department of Veteran Affairs medical budget at an all-time high of $58 billion, you'd think we'd be moving towards more sophisticated care. But the results are going in the wrong direction. Between 2009 and 2011, the most recent year the data is available, the number of veterans under the age of 30 who committed suicide increased by 44%.
Making a transition from military service to the civilian world is very difficult. I call it a transitional reaction. And that reaction always involves stress, and that's normal. But if you really want to interfere with that transition, medicate them.
Which is exactly what the VA is doing. Between 2008 and 2013, there was a 100% increase in the number of psychotropic drug prescriptions issued to active duty soldiers.
The military's job, the Veterans Administration's job, isn't to change their brain chemistry, which will interfere with them normalizing themselves back to the civilian world. These are mind-altering medications. The black box warning on these psychiatric medications, the first warning is suicidality. Second warning is poor judgment. Third warning, anger, hostility, which can translate into homicide.
Nice. Gotta get back in the saddle again. Get blown up by an IED. Ain't no time to rest around here.
Kelly Hughes is a highly decorated Marine who served 4 tours on the front lines of Kuwait, Iraq, and Afghanistan, and has been out of the service since 2009.
I was gonna go to this year's ball. I put these babies on and they're feeling a little snug.
Despite his good nature, Kelly's reintegration back into civilian life has not been easy.
This is my rating from the VA. Found not fit for duty here.
You have trouble maintaining employment due to your PTSD syndromes.
Oh yeah.
Post-traumatic stress disorder, major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and alcohol abuse and dependency. Note 3 suicide attempts since January 2010, with the most recent attempt on May 2011. I'm sorry, dude.
I came home and this was on the TV, this letter. She left.
Ex-girlfriend or fiance? Wife. How long were you together?
4 years. One thing I always think about is if I'm able to have a relationship.
Right. Like if you can actually put the pieces back together and start something new.
But, yeah, let me show you some of the meds that I'm on.
Yeah.
I take Zoloft, Seroquel, Paxil, Trazodone, Risperdal, Wellbutrin.
Effexor, Abilify, Ambien,
Depakote, Seroquel, Gabapen, Buspar,
Clozapine here and there, and Valium here and there, and it was
Restoril for sleep, Clorazepate for anxiety, Thiazolam for anxiety and sleep.
Antipsychotics.
Oh yeah.
How'd those go?
And they didn't work, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. It turned me into a zombie. My head would shake like this.
Yeah.
You know? It's just crazy.
But even more disturbing is what happened to Kelly when he tried to wean himself off of the meds.
At the beginning of the year, I was doing very well.
Yeah.
I felt like I was doing okay up until about a month and a half ago. That's when I started thinking about suicide, planning. And it was tripping me out, and, you know, homicidal thoughts too. When I sensed that, I was like, man, I gotta get back on this.
Yeah.
And so I went back to this.
It's a true and devastating example of the damned if you do, damned if you don't conundrum. These vets are chemically shackled to meds that they feel are only making their situation worse. But psychoactive drugs are not the only ones being overprescribed at an alarming level. In October of 2013, a group of veterans and VA doctors testified before Congress, attempting to stop the overuse of narcotics in treating PTSD.
I discovered that veterans' narcotic prescriptions were being renewed month after month, months on end, sometimes for 1 to 2 years, without an examination of the body part that was in pain. I'm here to tell you that this is just not a problem at Jackson. It's endemic throughout the VA, where quick and cheap is rewarded over good and thorough.
I was ordered by supervisors to write large amounts of Schedule II narcotics for inappropriate medical circumstances. I pointed out that 10 to 20% of opioid users become addicted. We were creating addicts. All of this fell on deaf ears.
After testifying, Dr. Gray was fired from her job as the head of pain management at the VA hospital in Hampton, Virginia. We met with her at her home in Norfolk.
The very first rule of medicine is do no harm.
And why did you speak out against the VA?
There was harm being done, is the simple answer. There were copious amounts of large doses of opioids being prescribed inappropriately. for PTSD. What is recommended is psychotherapy, SSRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, antidepressants. There are multiple other modalities. Narcotics are very cheap. You can see high volumes of patients in a short amount of time for relatively no cost.
There is really a prescription medicine addiction for a lot of these PTSD patients that the VA is cultivating
Perpetuating.
in a way.
Correct. I agree with you entirely. I saw patients who were receiving thousands of prescribed opioids in multiple combinations on a monthly basis. I do not understand how any medical institution in good conscience can perpetuate a therapy that is harmful to the people that they are supposed to serve. And let's remember, the VA serves the people who served us.
So we repeatedly reached out to the VA to get their side of this story, but we got a no comment at every turn. So instead we came down here to the Tampa area to talk to Congressman Gus Bilirakis, who vice chairs the House Committee on Veterans Affairs. How would you rate the VA's performance in dealing with our veterans today?
I don't think they're doing a good job on the mental health issue. Sometimes you need medication.
Sure.
But I think the focus should be on the counseling and the therapy. They need to get it timely, right away. We need to have psychiatrists evaluate, but again, we have to have the proper treatment. And one size does not fit all.
Right.
So if one particular therapy is not working, try another. But they're not encouraging that within the VA.
So is there a staffing and resource problem
Well, we
within
keep
the VA?
giving them money. We keep funding them. They say there's a staffing problem. We keep, every year after year, we keep giving them more money. I think that the system needs to be overhauled. Too many veterans are falling through the cracks, and it's unacceptable to me.
1/3 of the folks who go to the VA for mental health care don't get the follow-up support that they're supposed to get. Before they even get to the point where somebody can prescribe medication, too often they're waiting for an initial appointment. If you go in and file a disability benefits claim right now, you're gonna wait in a major city about 600 days. For about 900,000 people, they are right now waiting for the VA. 600,000 are backlogged. So 600,000 people are waiting more than 125 days for a simple answer. And that's I wish that 10 years ago, folks fully understood the cost of war, because they had plenty of money for tanks, they had plenty of money for bombs, but they didn't have enough money for counselors, and they didn't have enough money for the treatment that was going to be necessary when these folks came home.
And this oversight will have long-lasting effects on our veterans.
There's a good possibility I'm going to have to be on medication for the rest of my life. There's a possibility that I won't be able to hold down a job. And there's a possibility that I may not be able to hold down a relationship.
As for Jarek, he moved from Delaware to Los Angeles in the hopes of finding a better VA hospital.
Every day is kind of a struggle, thinking about wanting to get high.
I can't stop thinking about it, it's like, try to focus on something else, and then just like, the sand is the color of good heroin,
After a month in LA, Jarek is still struggling to get the care he needs from the VA.
I was admitted to the psych ward of the VA for opiate cravings, PTSD symptoms, and starting to have suicidal thoughts. They put me on clonidine for opiate withdrawal, Ativan as needed. I feel that I need therapy. What's helped me in the past, just giving me medication doesn't make the suicidal thoughts go away. If you don't fix the underlying issues, the same problem's gonna appear.